Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
All right, guys, you've already heard part one of this. This is Richard Dickerson again. I don't have to explain. First part is probably really good. It's the same in part two. Podcast is also brought to you by Arizona Working Dog Alliance. If you want to become a member or do some donating to help us fight these antis who keep coming after our traditions, run over to azwda.com. Now let's get to the podcast.
And I like this kind of dog. I'm rimming along, and they've snuck off, and they strike a lion across the dang canyon. I look over there, and there's 3 or 4 of them under a rim over there, and they've got them a lion trap. Now everybody runs to them. I personally like that kind of dog.
So you don't mind a far-ranging dog that'll range out far. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want them running a coyote and running plumb out of the country or running a deer out of the country.
Sure.
Trust me, I'll discipline them if I need to. And I don't want to make it sound like those dogs were just unmanageable. I had my thumb on them, but yeah. I wasn't as strict as a lot of guys. Yeah, and they didn't know their names. Most of them didn't know their names, and I didn't give a crap. You know, who cares?
So all they got to hear is beep, beep, beep to come back, don't they?
Yeah, and I wouldn't call the individual dogs. I would just, at the end of the day, I'd just holler, dogs, this way, here we go. Here I go. No. Get behind, and it's just a group effort. I mean, they all had names, and I know the Terrell Shelley dogs all knew their names. Those Terrell Shelley dogs they're just easy to handle, and they're just really, if a guy doesn't get to hunt much, or he doesn't have a lot of patience, or doesn't want to be steamrolled, get some Terrell Shelley bred dogs, because they're level 5 dogs. They can go to the game, and they're easy to handle. Some of those dogs that I got from Terrell, I would just break them vocally. I would just ride up and be harsh with them. I would just ride up there and, Dad, you better,
it's a bunch of bullshit.
Get out of there. Dang, if I got to get off this mule. And I would just break them verbally, and they would quit it. But those other dogs, that didn't work.
Benny, I was looking at some notes I had. That's, Susie went back to Terrell Shelley. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
And so that's Susie's was the mother of Solo and Blackie, and then Solo's the daddy of Booger and all of these, and then Jazz is the Solo Jazz cross is what produced, which was Larry Hendricks, is what produced the Terrorists.
Hey Benny, who sent us that paperwork that had Brett's dogs all over it? Wasn't that last Wednesday?
Yeah, it was Wednesday. He said that he had a dog that said my name on it, and I said, where? And I said, oh, yeah, you got that deal from Brett. So, Brett, you gave somebody or sold somebody or gave somebody a pup out of Jazz, and it had Solo in it, and they were on the show Wednesday night.
Let me see.
I recognized all the dogs in the line.
Let me find it. Send it to Brett.
I don't remember. I've, like I had a guy come down, and he's an outfitter, and he's hunted with some of my dogs that are with some other outfitters, and he wanted to get a dog from me, and the kid showed up. He's a real good kid, real nice kid. Come and said, yeah. I said, I'll take that dog or whatever. And I said, you're just trying to put together a pack? And he said, yeah. And I said, we'll take those 2 also. So I'm not a very good dog salesman. I mean, if I like you, I just can give you one.
Well,
I'm send this to you,
I said
it was Cord.
Cord Martin?
Cord?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, those are the dogs I'm talking about that they were so hard to handle, was the Smith and Hendricks dogs.
That's why when I went over there to California,
they're not for everybody. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, when I went over there to California, and I got a dog from Steve Galentine, one of those Nance dogs, and they were real shy and real timid acting, and and I gave that dog away. I drove all the way over there just outside of San Francisco and paid for that dog and hunted her for a year and a half, and we just couldn't get along because the manners. Those Hendrix dogs that I had, and you you don't just tell them, "Hey, sweetie pie, come here and get out of that." And so that other dog that was a lot more
Good
timid
luck with that.
couldn't take the harshness of me squalling at those dogs when they wouldn't pay attention. And heaven forbid if I shocked the dog, that other dog would quit and stay 50 yards behind my mule. So that's what Rick's talking about right now. Is there's different calibers of dogs when it comes to handling too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's levels to that, and those dogs, those Hendricks and Smith dogs were not any. They're worth, and then the Terrell Shelley versus those, they're all worth having in there. They're all really good dogs. 4 or 5 level kind of dogs. One strain of dogs is just easier to handle than the other. So I mean that's a personal preference. I had both, and I mixed them back and forth, and some of those traits, some of those traits would come out in different areas, but they, it's if a guy's hunting all the time, it's all about dog power, and however you can acquire that. That's at the end of the day, that's what's gonna.
Oh wow.
That's what's gonna make you successful.
I don't know if I.
Well, I was just say that when I went over there, Rick, I was looking for some young dogs, and yeah, that's probably that was it.
Let me see.
I and my son was with me. Justin was with me, and you turned that you called her Blanca, turned Blanca out. She was just a little dog, little pup, and she ran over there and started raising Cain with that bobcat you had in a cage, and she was the last dog you had out of Popeye. She had that little twist of hair on her neck, and
I remember her, but I don't remember much about her. But I remember her.
Well,
didn't I give your boy a puppy that day?
It was that dog. Yeah. You told him if you can catch that dog. Yeah, if you can catch that dog, you can have her. And you said, hell, he can't catch that dog. I can't catch that dog. And he showed up with that.
Here's what I remember about that. You asked for a dog. You asked for a puppy, and I told you no, but I said I'll give the boy one.
Yeah,
that was
right.
Supposed to Wayne Bisbee wants to let everybody know he is looking for a more finished hound. So, any suggestions? Where to go nowadays? I don't know where a guy goes nowadays.
Hey, I'm gonna brag real quick I'm gonna brag on Brett real quick. And you were talking about this a minute ago, and it dawned on me because I watched that what do you call it, the podcast where you caught the young lion that had killed the old lady's dog. 18, 17-year-old dog. She's had the dog her whole life. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Did you have it? I saw it on there. So I want to brag on that because that was, and make no mistake about it, those are habituated lions. Those are lions that have lost all their fear of people. A barking dog in the yard don't mean anything to them. And make no mistake about it, those are the kind of lions, even a juvenile lion. I saw the picture of him, and he was a juvenile lion. Those are the kind of lions that'll jump in a yard and get a 5-year-old child and be gone with them before you can blink, buddy. Don't kid yourself. So you did good on that. And here's the other thing. 9, no disrespect to other guys, but 9 out of 10 people, Brett, wouldn't have caught that lion. You did. I saw the whole thing, and those dogs did good. Those are tough lions to catch, Cowboy. They really are. Hard to get started and then go over there and finish them. That was a good lick.
I got to brag on my old booger dog. I couldn't start that lion right there where he killed the dog. I couldn't start it, and so I moved the dog.
You're going to start those in the yard, They just
we couldn't
start them right there.
So I went down. I thought in my mind, I thought, well, that lion's probably going down to the river down here because the river was right down the driveway, and so I went down to the river. but there was that canyon, there was that arroyo that was right off to the side of her yard. And I was down, and most of the dogs followed me except Booger. Booger didn't go down there with me. And I was looking around, all of a sudden I heard, whoa, like that. And I thought, that son of a gun. So I took the other dogs, and of course they heard him, and they went up there, and they hit that track and trailed her up that little rough, nasty arroyo and caught her up there underneath a bush. But that lady, I really felt sorry for that lady when I got there. She said, I'm taking care of my granddaughter. I'm taking care of my granddaughter, and I don't even feel like I can let her stand at the bus stop right now with this.
I was going to say there was a bus stop close by.
Yeah. And she said, I can't even take my kid to the bus stop. And I said, ma'am, I said, I'll just do the best I can. And, I'd do it for I'm not a professional. I don't do it for money. I want to go catch a lion. And we ended up catching her.
I bet she doesn't know if the lion wouldn't have scared her either. I bet you, I wasn't there, but I bet you dozen donuts the lion wouldn't have scared her or anything else.
She said absolutely not. She said she was in the yard throwing stuff at it while it was killing her little dog right in front of her. Right, and that lion didn't pay a lick, and she just picked her dog up and took it out of the yard. And
I've been around those kind of lions, and you did good on that, because like I said, make no mistake, they can snatch a 2-year-old child and be over the fence and gone with them in a hurry.
And I kind of got worried because I didn't want to tag the lion, and but I went straight from there, and I went straight to the Game and Fish office, and I talked to them. They were really, really pleasant, really nice, and came out and said, well, let's take a look at it. And they came out and looked at it, and I said, I just didn't have time to get a depredation permit or whatever you're supposed to get. I said, I got the phone call late last night, and I knew I had to be there early this morning because it was a summertime lion. And they were real nice. They said, no problem.
Well, it's too much at stake, and they know that. So unless they're just complete idiots,
No, they were super nice and understanding. The only thing they didn't let me do is I wanted to cut the dew claws off of them because I collect the dew claws. And I asked to cut the dew claws, and he said, the Game and Fish guy said, sure, you can cut the dew claws off. He said, if you tag it. I said, no, I don't want to tag this thing.
Should have cut them off first and said, that's how I caught it.
They probably,
dogs must have ripped it off.
I could have cut them off, and I bet they never would have checked and known. But
you think those pack of dogs could have killed that lion if you had 6, 7 dogs?
Yeah, they would have stretched her.
Yeah. If he wouldn't have come and intervened, they had him.
A story to not go any further than here. It's happened before. Let me tell you what, those terror.
No further than here, Brett.
And what, 90 something other people. Those terrorists they got their name legitimately.
What happened 30 years ago stays in 30 years ago.
Past the statute of limitations. Yeah, there you go.
I'll tell you what, old Booger and those other pups, they're level 5 dogs. Most people wouldn't have caught. I've been around those situations. That's a tough deal, and you did good catching that thing.
The only thing I've done, I don't catch many lions. I mean, but I've ruined dogs in the past. Jazz is one that I did ruin for a long time, and I've ruined dogs in the past, and I learned my lesson that the way I have to hunt and what I do with my dogs, I have to keep them working. And so I don't catch enough lions to be really too hard on them. But unlike Richard, I do put a good handle on my dogs. I want my dogs to really listen to me. And I have to call them off a lot of tracks that are trash too, that I know it's trash. I'm sitting there watching them and it's trash. And I don't go in there and just start frying their heads because they're trying to trash on me. I just holler at them, hey guys, that's a bunch of bull. Let's go this way. And I mean, that's.
Well, don't pick on them too much.
Yeah.
Especially when they're lollygagging.
Lollygagging. That was something John Clump, Booger and them started. And I kept looking at John. I kept looking at the dogs. And I was wondering what John was going to say. And the dogs were trying to start a track there and everything. Finally, John says with that unique voice he has, that's a bunch of bull. They're just lollygagging. I said, all right, guys, let's go. They're lollygagging.
Him and I were driving through Wilcox one time. We had our horses up front in the stock trailer, and we had, 15 or 20 hounds in the back, and they were just barking and barking. It was an open top stock trailer. And they're just barking and barking and barking and barking. And John was driving. I said, you want to pull over? I'll go back there and I'll school on them a little bit. And John said, nah, Rick. He said, they're just having a little fun. You know?
Brett's dogs are lollygagging.
Yeah.
Mine were lollygagging.
His dogs are having fun.
He said, nah, Rick. He said, they're just having a little fun. And I said, good enough.
He tried to call me during this live just a little bit ago, John Clump. I left him a message and said, when are we going to go do some gold digging? And he called me a little bit ago. I texted him and said, hey, I'm on the live. And he left me a big message. Let me know. Let me know when you're coming down here.
I tell you what now, he I don't know if it's his voice or what it is, but he does have a knack with dogs. I mean, he absolutely has a knack, an understanding. That's pretty cool.
Them.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Them.
And they like him.
They read him.
Yes, exactly. It's amazing to watch.
That's the best lion hunter ever, gosh, probably, in reality.
Yeah. The guy that has a relationship with his dogs mentally.
Well, he's just a good hunter and a good houndsman and just an all-around good guy. But, I mean, he's tough.
Man.
That's a mountain tough guy. Probably best lion, except for his sister. I think his sister, Marie, is probably a better hunter than him.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you what, I knew her when she was 18 years old. That was the most handsome girl you ever seen in your life. She was a looker now, and a hand with a hound, way better hand than John and I were with a hound.
I'll be dang.
When he caught that tiger over there that day, in my opinion, if Marie wouldn't have come over there, they wouldn't have got him.
No, that's what he said because she brought in those other dogs for him too.
Well, there ain't no sense in lying about it. He knows. I know the story.
Yeah,
she was a hand.
Here's another feel-good comment there, Rick. It says, sure enjoy listening to the talk about the hounds and lion hunting. Unfortunately, I'm in California and can no longer run lion, bear, or bobcat, so the talk sure takes me back to the good time. Let me tell you something. I got a lot of Californian, and I'm going to dote on those Californians. I got a lot of Californian members on my Arizona Working Dog Alliance. I got members from Oklahoma, California, Missouri, all over the states. I think I have more than Arizonans signing up.
Well, the Californians know what it's like to lose their rights.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I had a guy from California, lifetime member, $1,000.
No kidding. That's super.
Yep.
I'll take my brainwashed idiot's statement back.
I'm working with them guys. I said, don't worry about Brett.
You can be a jerk.
You don't remember he said that anyways.
No. In my defense now, and I've said this a jillion times, to me, California is California, but they say that it should be split down the middle and that Northern California should be a different state. And,
yep. They tried it. I think in 74, they tried it.
I stand corrected about that. Oh, Susan Stone, Mr. Clump.
Susan Stone. This has been one of your best. That's because me and Brett said, you know what? It's called interviews and stories and tells. We need to start getting back to interviews. And we still talk all of our crap. I don't think that's going away. This has been one of your best interviews, and it got even better when you brought up Mr. Clump.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Clump adds flavor to anything.
That was Susan Stone. I don't remember where she's from. I haven't seen her on here for a little while.
Isn't she?
Hey, Susan, send a picture of your bass boat. No, I'm kidding.
Jeremiah Flaw says we're taking California back soon. Yes, I believe in my heart we will. Yeah. I really do. I think. I don't know if it's going to be this year or in the next 4 years, but I think there's going to be a big push and effort to free California from the communism. I really do. I think they're going to bring back dogs for bears, and it's just you'll trickle in to the rest of it. That's what I've said. I've said that for a year now.
There you go. There's a good question by Rick Cooley. What about states that have seasons and running seasons? And that means where you're not allowed to harvest the lion. Are you hurting young dogs, pulling them off of trees in running season? By not shooting the lion out to them, just calling them off trees.
Yeah.
I think you make a better dog if you get to chew on them a little bit. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to chew on every one of them, but I think they need to do a little bit of work. I mean, you can if you put a boxer in and spar his whole life, you're not going to know what his potential is as a boxer. And
Until
I think
he's
it's
in a
kind
real
of the
fight.
same scenario. Yes.
See, that's tough for me because I just hadn't done it. You know, I hadn't. I don't know how to answer that.
Guys, excuse me for a minute. Carry on without me.
Hope he puts a ute on so we don't hear him peeing.
I wish I could answer his question. I think that game. I think
Go ahead,
feeding
Rick.
them that meat and letting them have them. You know, we just didn't turn them loose. So that's a tough one. But if that's what a guy's got, that's what he's got. But I would dang sure pat on them. If they caught something else. Huh?
Reward them some way. Reward them in some way.
Yeah, I would spend extra time with them under the tree, petting on them, and tell them, "You good boy, you know, you good dog, you know." I mean, I would spend extra time under there and let them, you know, and reward them that way.
I've treated a lot of bear, and I can pull my dogs off a bear and go tree another bear 10 minutes later. Yeah. But they've also got to chew on a few bears.
Yeah, they know the difference. I mean, they can distinguish. Just because they don't get to chew on it doesn't mean that they're not enjoying that, or you know, you can still count that as a catch. I mean, they're still going to make lion dogs. You know, they're still getting addicted. They're still going to want to do it.
Yeah, if it's in their heart to do it, they're going to do it. Period.
Right. Yeah, you ain't going to stop them.
Hey, Rick, have you got a guitar handy?
No.
Brett and Benny said, "You're quite the guitar player too, Mr. Dickerson. Are you going to play something for us? Great show tonight."
Who said that?
Called you out. He called you out.
Who?
Michael Hanlon.
Michael Hanlon.
No.
Somebody that's watching.
Nope, not going to do it.
We're still playing quite a bit. There's a music scene up about 100 miles north of me. I've been going up there the last 15, 18 years. I've got friends up there, and there's a lot of honky tonks up there. I'm still playing as much as I want, and nothing's changed. People are still drunken fools. You know?
The drunker they get, the better you sound.
Yeah, I've seen it all my life, but I don't drink, so I mean, it doesn't. That's the only difference. I mean, I hadn't had a drink in 43 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I gave it up.
Brett,
Yes, sir.
he said that John Clump was tough, so I sent you that picture of John taking a nap right there in the middle of the road on your phone.
Yeah, it should be on my messages here, I think.
It was a text message.
Huh, it didn't come through on my computer yet. I get texts. There it is.
There it is. 7 out of 8 of Californian are people like us. That's probably pretty true. I wish they would cut that state in half, make it Jefferson like they wanted to back in like 74 or whatever it was.
73.
Mr.
Been
Clump.
there, done that.
Dogs get tired, and he gets tired just anywhere you're at. Just stretch out and take a nap.
Spent my whole life doing that.
You got a picture of my kid sleeping next to one of my dogs out there next to the horse trailer.
Hey, Rick, you're down in South Texas, right?
West Texas.
West. How about running some of those run-in walkers they use for bobcats? Have you ever experimented with any of those with your dogs?
No, if they had it in them, I didn't know. Like I said, I've just had, early on I had some outside dogs. I had one of those slash ranch hounds, the Dub Evans hound.
Yep.
I had one of those that a guy bought, and anyway, he bought the dog, and then his wife made him quit hunting, and so he called me and said, "Hey, this dog, come get him." And he had a couple of Terrell Shelley dogs that I knew. He had Lil, and so I went over there and got him. And he had one of those slash ranch hounds, and I kept him till he died. I mean, he was really a good hound for a big dog. He was he was like 75 pounds, but he got around good, and he was tough. And
have like an extremely good nose.
I had those, and then I had the sir.
Have like an extremely good nose coming from that slash ranch
Do
stuff.
what?
Have a really good nose.
Yeah, it was almost annoying. Yeah, it was almost annoying how cold nosed he was. But he was a good dog. I called him Snoopy, and I kept him till he died. But I had the Goswick stuff, the Terrell Shelley stuff, and then the Hendricks and the Smith stuff. I got a dog when I was younger from John. Can't remember her name,
Dandy.
but she was huh?
Her name was Dandy.
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 And she was a little she was a little pale colored dog, kind of light, had a little light fawn colors in her. And she was a level 5 hound. I caught a lot of lines with her. She was a real deal.
Yeah.
And, but that's been 40 years ago or longer,
Rick Cooley said, should you not? There you go.
Should you not take
young dogs during running season is what I mean.
You mean if you're not going to shoot nothing out? I don't think you're going to hurt them by not shooting it out, but you might not be able to get all the goodies sometimes out of them.
Just keep taking them, Rick, and then if you all catch something, just bet on them and reward them. Maybe take some little cookies, have them in your pocket, and give them cookies or something. Try to reward them somehow. Anytime if I paid attention to my dogs and patted on them or even spoke to them, man, they would kill somebody for you because we just didn't.
Yeah.
We just
just walking out to your dogs, even if you got them on chains or in a kennel, whatever. Like I'll walk out on my dogs, sit on their barrels or their boxes, and I'll just pet them, and that makes 110% difference in the world how a dog will react to you.
What and then when you're out, I don't know. I could be corrected here, but you're out and you got some dogs that are trailing. You got a couple young dogs with you, and they're not going to those other dogs, and they're hanging around you. Years ago, I used to get real frustrated and upset, but then what I started doing is just they're invisible to me. They're totally invisible. The only dogs that get any attention from me is the guys or the dogs that are working. And I might even go up there and say, "Hey, good dogs, let's go. Where'd he go?" And pretty soon I know those young dogs start saying, well, they start paying attention. They start looking to see what's going on instead of just looking at me, coming back to me, and because they're totally ignored. They're invisible. If dogs are working, they come back to me. I don't have nothing to do with them.
The best handling hounds I ever had was when my kids were little, and they would play with them as puppies, and then and my kids all went with me. My two girls, my other kids went too. My oldest boy, he's caught as many lions with me as anybody, but my two girls went with me. They went everywhere with me, and they would pet on them. And all those dogs back when the girls were little and was going with me and making a lot of pony tracks, those dogs were the best handling hounds because they were doing what I didn't do. They would pet on them and sneak them cookies, but once they got bigger and grew up and left, and then it was just back to me. You could see the change in those dogs, the way they were being brought up and the way they handled them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's one of my pet peeves, and maybe I even overhandle them sometimes. I like a dog that They all go get in their pens. They all load up, and they all come to me when I call them. And I work real hard at doing that. But also, I got to have a pretty decent handle on them because of how I hunt, and I don't catch that many lions.
Yeah. No, everybody does it different. You know, I mean, me and Terrell Shelley and I, we've hunted a lot. And Terrell's his best lion hunter in the world, and I've learned a lot from him. But we hunt differently.
He keeps his dogs real tight to him, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's more of a disciplinarian than I am, and he likes a lot of order and structure, and there ain't a thing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But he would come down. He came down here for 15 years every winter, and we caught a lot of lions together. He would just come down and stay 2 weeks, and we would go and mix those dogs. You know, that's one of the few times I see where that worked. But it would drive him crazy that I wouldn't make them hounds mine. You know, he would get on me. He said, "You need to go there. You need to go there and beat her." And I said, "Beat her for what?" And he goes, "She's not listening to you." And I said, "She's 13 years old. She don't." What are you gonna?
She's not gonna.
What are you gonna whip her for? You know? He said, "Well, she doesn't listen." And I said, "Who cares?"
Mike Root's real loose with his dogs. He's real. We were riding up through there. I was taking him to where that big Tom had killed that elk, and I'd caught the lion the day before, and we were riding up through there, and one of those dogs took off. And I just looked at Mike, and we just kept on riding. And I looked at him, and I said, "Mike, what do you reckon that dog's doing?" He's just chasing a coyote. He'll be back here in a little while. That was it. No concern or nothing, you know, just. And by golly, we didn't catch that same Tom, but we did catch a lion that day.
Who's the one that said when they took off that deer that he'd chasing a deer, and he said, "You don't care he's chasing a deer," and he said, "I'd be more mad if he didn't." Who told that story?
I don't know, but I've heard guys say, "Well, if you're going to chase it, you better chase it to catch it. You don't dilly around with it."
I wasn't that lenient, but pretty close.
Pretty close.
You know,
I'd always heard that Terrell kept his dogs real tight to him. And then I've also heard, you know, I don't know if it was about Terrell, but about someone who I forget who it was, said, "Man, they got some good dogs." They said, "Oh, heck, he's the best dog he's got."
We've caught a lot of lion together and made a lot of pony tracks together, and he's a hand. But our hunting styles are different. But the interesting part is when he would come down, we would catch lions. You know, if you're a lion hunter, it doesn't really matter. You know, the styles are, you know, conflicting. You know,
yeah.
If you're a lion hunter, you're going to catch lions.
Yeah.
You know, and them dogs would all work together. I mean, they would, you know,
they'd honor each other and everything.
Yeah, he would in the morning. He said, "What are you going to take today?" And I said, "I don't know. You take what you want, and then I'll just take a little handful or something." And you know, but we would always have a little handful of each. You know, but I would. I've always been scared of Terrell, so I just did what he wanted to do. So.
Yeah, Terrell's I bet he was a double tough sucker.
Yeah, he's somebody you don't want to mess with.
I imagine.
Yeah, he's got some health issues. He's got health issues, and I'm still scared of him.
I know.
He likes that.
He confronted me there at that get-together. He told me about YouTube. He just looked at me and said, "Well, YouTube, how come I'm always getting these half-naked women on my YouTube? That YouTube's this and that." I just looked at him and said, "I'm sorry. I don't have anything to do with that."
No, sir. No, sir.
You know, and he's not in the best of health, and it scared me. And I thought, no, I don't want him to get too mad at me.
No, I knew him when he was 26, 27 years old, and he was
firecracker.
Stout now.
Well, I knew him from
he's just stout.
Knew him from the ropings, and
he's been cowboying his whole life, you know.
Yeah.
You don't want him bulldogging, and we wrestled. We're still wrestling. I mean, we would wrestle a lot when we were younger. And I'm gonna tell you what, he was
hard as a rock, isn't he?
Well, he was just had that freaky. You know, cowboys are strong. I mean, they're out every day. They're working hard. You know, and he just had that strong cowboy strength to him.
Yeah.
And he's older than me by a little, I don't know. He's 11 years older than me, so he's the boss. So it doesn't matter to me. He's like a big brother or something.
I used to run into him at the rope-ins all the time. I can't remember ever actually roping with him, but he'd started team roping again later on in life, and I used to bump into him at the rope-ins. I used to tell everybody the same thing. Say, I'm a number 2 lion hunter, and he's a number 9 lion hunter, but I'm a number 8 healer, and he was a number 4 header. So we were coming from different. I was trying to talk to him about lion hunting, and he was at a roping, and he really didn't want to talk about lion hunting. He was talking about roping.
Man, when he was younger, he could tie a calf.
He was a calf roping fool, wasn't he?
He was a calf roping machine. Now.
Yep.
Yeah, Terrell's is just they're just good people. They're like family to me. They've been awful good to me.
All those Shelleys are hands. I mean, they are cowboys. Yeah. I mean, that's what they are.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's a different. I think I respect the whole old school camaraderie, because you could get in a fist fight and drink a beer later. Like, there was still, these days, everybody's so trying to get a lion first or get more lions or a bigger lion or your dog's better. Back then, like you said, there was a respect value. You know who was the boss and who wasn't the boss. You know who was a lion hunter, and you didn't trespass on that. These days, they try to trespass on everything you do, and there's no more whoopsies. They call the cops on you these days. You little whoopsie.
Whoopsie can get you in trouble.
Oh,
I mean, it's always been that way, but it's really bad now.
Oh, you just talk a little shit, and they'll call the cops on you.
Oh, I know.
All that trying to one up or worry about what everybody else is doing, that just keeps you from getting better. When you're focused on if I'm focused on what Brett and Benny are doing and I'm worried about it and I'm being jealous-hearted, that just keeps you from getting better. In my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. That just puts you down.
That's
that's
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And who even cares? It's none of your business what anybody else is doing. Focus. Pay attention to your own business.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. I think the best advice.
That's just the way it is.
I think the best advice you ever hear is do what's good for you. If you're hunting 10 days a year, then your dogs are good enough for you, then that's your business. Whether you're catching 11 lions, no lions, or just getting out in the woods, or you're catching 100 lions, whatever works for you.
Absolutely.
If you're wishing everybody well, that will come back to you. That's what I believe. Unless they're just doing something wrong or jacking with you or your family, and if that's the case, whoopsie.
Whoopsie. Whoopsie. Whoopsie. Yep. That's
It is what it is.
I had a whoopsie here a couple years ago. They called the cops on me. And it was over a lion track. It was terrible. The guy come out, and I was on the irrigation ditch, and I had my dog on a leash because the highway was right there. And I was trying to figure out where that lion went. And guy told me to come out and started bullying me, trying to tell me I couldn't be where I was.
And didn't work out so good.
No.
Whoopsie.
And then the cops came. And then not only did the cops came, but the game and fish officer came. Anyway, we'll let that story die right there.
Whoopsie. What is whoopsie right out of there?
Oh, hell. It didn't die that fast back then, Brett. You were still mad a week later.
Oh, I know. I was still mad. Every time I drive by that place, I still get mad.
I was going to say, Brett's getting fired up right now thinking about it.
This is my first time on here, and look what's happened. Look what I've done.
You created a brand. Whoopsie.
Whoopsie, yeah. Say, buddy, you don't want me to pull any of this whoopsie out on you, do you?
Yeah. People will be commenting, and if it's derogatory, whoopsie.
Yeah. Poor guy. I think it comes a lot from guys spending way too much time out there by themselves.
Oh yeah. You got to make fun of this stuff. I mean, you got to make fun of it. You got to.
Yeah,
I think you have
otherwise
to.
it'll eat a hole in you. You don't want it to eat a hole in
I just
No.
talked to a guy caught his first dry ground lion, like they caught it, and I said it's a whole different world, ain't it? And he said, "Man, better because he's hunting in the snow and stuff, and you could just tell in his voice the excitement of catching his own lion dry ground." And that I said, well, now you know why all these old guys say, if you could do it, what would you do? And it's always dry ground lion hunting. There's just something about it, and I think you have to appreciate the loneliness when you're out there, because I hunt alone a lot, so I think it's a whole different world than even bear hunting. I bear hunt, and I bear hunt alone. But
And he
bear
wears
hunting
out
alone,
and he wears out kids and hounds.
I do. Both of them were worn out. So, but I've had those kids around those hounds, and like Rick was saying, I had twin girls 2 years old that would go sneak in the whelping pen and just manhandle those puppies at 2 weeks old. And those, I think, Becky Dwyer talks about that neurological sensatory, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. I call it send your 2-year-old twins into the box.
Socialization.
They'll touch every part of that puppy and hold it by every digit, tail, ear. It don't matter. They'll choke them dogs out, hold them with one hand, and those dogs they come out way better. They're way better than just leaving a dog in a box and, when they're 8 weeks old, trying to deal with them.
There you go. There's your name for your business.
Whoopsie
Whoopsie Outfitters and Guide Service.
Here we go.
Well, I think,
there we go.
but you talked about being out there hunting by yourself and you got to be lonely and all that, but I never found myself lonely because that's how I bonded with my dogs. It was me and the dogs out there.
Let me tell you a story. I worked out of town for 4 years, and I took my dogs down where I was, and I had 10 barrels set up, and I was in a little trailer, and I'd take my mule and my dogs. Sometimes I have to leave my dogs for some reason, and I'd leave my dogs at home and come down for a week or two, and that was the most loneliest I felt, walking to my trailer, and there was because my dogs are around my trailer. I have 10 dogs around my trailer and my mule. And it was the most lonely I ever felt in my entire life is when I was down there alone and didn't have my dogs with me. And I carry my stinker dog everywhere. And I went to the valley. I don't even know what today is, Monday. Last week I went Wednesday, and I didn't have my little stinker dog, my hound, with me. And I took my little car, and every time I looked back in there, she wasn't there. And I felt like I had just left my kids at a mall somewhere and forgot about them. So you have that relationship with your dogs more than anything in the world, especially when you're out of town and that's all you have. And when I didn't have them, it was a sad deal. I tell them, I'd be on the phone with my wife. I'm like, damn, man, I feel lonely. Like nobody to yell at, no chains going in and out of the dog box, no feeding them. I mean, it's a relationship.
People don't realize it.
It is.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's just, to me, it's just family. People
I don't think
we're a
people
bunch
realize
of
that.
sensitive people, or we're trying to kill everything, or we care about that stuff. Like you said, you touch one of my dogs in front of me, not going to be good.
Yep.
I'll beat him, but don't you?
Yeah, I'll pull my dog's ears all day long, but don't pull his tail, buddy.
Right. Yeah.
I bond with all my dogs. It's a team. I bond with all my dogs. We're a team. I believe they work harder for you. They do. And like you said, you said you had your dogs that didn't even know their name, but they sure knew who you were, and they knew your voice. And they knew when you said it's time to go. You said, here, dogs. They said, all right, we're going.
Make no mistake about it. They knew who the boss was. Every dog I've ever had, they knew.
Can you imagine hunting that many?
Go ahead.
Hunting that many days a year. Yeah, those dogs. They got to be tuned in so good to what you're doing. I mean,
Well,
that's
it's what I call lion-minded.
yeah,
They get up. Every dog I've ever had, they're lion-minded. I'm lion-minded, or they're bear-minded, or whatever you're hunting.
yep.
Those dogs are all business. Even though they weren't seemed like or wasn't listening to me, they're still on their mind to catch a lion.
There is a difference between loneliness and solitude. That's it right there. It's that solitude that's just peaceful, and it's fantastic.
That's what I always said. I lived up there off grid. I had that place for 10 years. I lived up there for 3 years. And until the weekend when my wife would come up there, I was all by myself. I mean, in the middle of nowhere. But I never felt, of course, I had my mules and my hounds, but I never felt like I was missing anything. Never felt like I needed to be anywhere else. And I just barely had television up there and had no communications, no cell phone service or anything. But it just was such a freedom. You just felt free to do whatever you wanted to do.
I've had my dogs keep me from freezing to death a time or two, in all honesty.
Oh, stick your hand in a dog box, and it's 100 degrees in there. It's lovely to climb into.
Well, I'm just saying, staying out all night. We stayed out a lot. We'd trail into the night. Those dogs I had, you couldn't stop them. I mean, I would try to stop them at dark 30, but
not on a good lion track.
You ride up there 200 yards, then you hear a couple of them behind you. They sneak back off, and they're back down. So I finally just gave up with that. That's part of the reason we were hunting at night because of the heat, but some of that was just you just couldn't stop them.
That's what you ended up, yeah.
At night, you go up there at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and jump the lion and catch them. Well, we were in the Van Horn Mountains many years ago, and it was bitter, bitter cold. And I always remember this lion, and we'd trailed this female, wild female, and it was real ledgy, a lot of big boulders, and it was super ledgy in there. And we trailed this thing all day long, and we finally got her up about dark, and they jumped her, and they were running her through some ledges there, and they had her stop several times. And so now it gets dark, and still can't. They still couldn't stop her. So we get down there, and I didn't have any matches, and it's too dark to travel. So I had my mule, and so I unsaddled him and just tied up. And I was in a big bunch of boulders, and I always remember this. And those dogs were in those ledges, and I laid there just freezing until about 10 o'clock, and they were up there just trailing and trailing, and you could hear them moving the lion around in those ledges, and they couldn't stop it. They couldn't bay it. And she was wild as wild. So we got down there, and I started calling to them dogs, and one by one, probably about midnight, 1 o'clock, one by one, those dogs come in. They give it up and came into me. And I really think to this day, if I wouldn't have had, and there were 7 or 8 dogs, if I wouldn't have had them up around me, we were in those. I mean, it was, what I'm talking about? Bitter, bitter cold. It was like 12 degrees maybe. And I just went to gather them, as they came in. I just kept gathering them, and they kept me from freezing to death.
I bet so.
We got up the next morning and went back up there. There was a little water trough up there, and I went up there and watered them. And we went back up there and got on that lion, and she hadn't gone very far. We went up there about 10:30 and jumped her and got her. She was give out too. She was just right there, but we went back up there and I restarted them. No, that's a lot of try right there. A hound that's been trailing that long and hadn't had anything to eat. So we went back up there and made a believer out of her. And but in the daytime, it's a different deal when you're trying to stop them, than that nighttime. That's what I talked about earlier. That nighttime thing, man, they're hard to stop.
Did you get calls that when you went into an area, people had called and said, hey, we're having lion problems in this area? Or did you have regular areas that you went into anyway, just because it was a high density of lions in that area and you knew they had to be thinned out?
Yes, sir. Yeah, a lot of times it was just, there was a history of predation in there, and just ranchers just wanted management in there. So I would go in and just, in the colder months of the year, I would just go over there and hunt. And and manage those lions in the winter. And there was places when I first come to Texas that they just didn't have, you'd go over there and the deer were just decimated. There wasn't any deer left. And so, deer is big business, so they weren't making any money on that. And they said, "Can you come in?" And so I went in there, and I'd have places that I kept like 21, 25 years. I had one place I had 25 years. Hunted it every winter. Took 9. Yeah, just one little old mountain range there on 4 different ranches. I'd hunt it every winter and take 9, 10, 11, 12 lions out of there.
Since you had hunted that so long, did you know exactly where to go to start a lion? Do you have specific spots where you just?
No, but I had lions have routes. I mean, they have little, what we call a lion haunt, where they go. But if I'm in, and I know some country, I figure out where the trails are, where the cow trails, where I can get around. Every time I'm over there, I might mix it up and go in reverse one time, or, if I trail a lion off into a canyon, let's say I trail off into a canyon, Laguna Madre or something, and it gets dark, and then I'll go back the next day and I'll start back over there. I just try to move around. But yeah, if I know the country, I'm pretty predictable about how I travel and where I'm going. And those lions, they're, the behavior, once they go on a place, once they scrape in a place, once they urinate or deposit some scat there, it's a territory. That's their home range. You can go over there, and like you're saying, you can look at a saddle or places that they're going to scrape in the canyon. You can go over there and strike them.
And what's that?
But I wouldn't just go over there on purpose. I would, because if you do that, you might, you only got to miss a lion track. A lot of guys don't realize you only got to miss a lion track by 6 inches. If you miss it, you've rode by it. So I think if you slow down and hunt, you want to go up there to the saddle and check it, but hunt on the way up there.
Yeah. And say you got a place where lions come in and scrape, or a tom's been coming in there and scrape. You remove that tom. Is another tom going to pick that same spot, you think, to scrape in?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Those just lion haunts. I mean, those are just good places, and they're just going to be traveling around in there, and those vacancies get filled pretty quick. By them transient young lions that we were talking about earlier. They come in there, and when I first come down to Texas in 1990, there was a bunch of unmolested populations of lions. I mean, I was just dumbstruck. I mean, they weren't hunting them, and the people that weren't hunting them they weren't finished. They weren't catching them. They might have been trailing them, but they weren't catching them. I mean, there were some guys down here hunting them and being successful, but I was surprised that there was a lot of country that had an unmolested what I call an unmolested populations of lion. That first year or two I was down here, it was not unusual. I mean, I was killing 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old lions pretty regular.
Wow.
Especially, and that's old. 15 years old is wild for a lion. I mean, but they just been there their whole life and eating, you're talking to the rancher, and he said, they've had 3,000 head of Rambouillet ewes for 30 years. And he said, we haven't raised a lamb crop in 20 years. He said, we mark 120%, and we've shipped 10 or 20% the last 20 years. I said, well, I'll go over there and look. And you get over there and you go over there and take some dogs, and boy, you're into them, I kind of enjoy putting the management on them lions because they've been hoarding that country their whole life. They'll spend their whole life right there,
Because they don't have to go anywhere to look for anything else. They got everything.
Well, that's their home. I mean, that's their territory. So they'll stay right there until they die. If something doesn't happen to a lion, we'll move in there. He'll set up a home range, and he'll live his whole life right there until I come along or somebody like me or another lion kills him. They'll stay their whole life right there.
How about down in that country? How big a range do they have, toms and females?
Well, once again, it hinges on population densities.
Yeah.
So you got 100 nautical miles, and you got a high population of densities. Those home ranges can be 25 miles per set of lions. But as the population density goes down, what happens is there's a lot of vacant country. So a Tom, he's 2 years old. He moves in there. Now he's 4 years old, and he's just circling. And in a low population density in like some scrub country or marginal country, what's happened is he just keeps gathering that country up. So now he's 8, 9, 10 years old, and his home range is enormous.
Yeah.
And he's got 10 girls that he's taking care of. And that's how they get the bigger home rangers. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So you got women.
Ranges are smaller.
You got women and you got food. What else do you need?
Yeah, and that's their whole deal. And I don't find any fault in it. All they care about is deer meat and girls. Works for me.
It's a good life.
I was working for the game department years ago over there in Arizona, and we collared a lion. There was let me think what it was over there around Wickenburg. It was west of Phoenix there, and there was a range of mountains there. The Harquahalas and the Harkavars. There was 2 ranges of mountains there. And then down on the other end of it, there was what they call Black Mountain, and it's just high desert country, but it's there's a low population density. It's pretty scrubby, but a lot of deer and anyway, we collared this big lion, and I think he was 5 maybe when we collared him, and they would fly. They would get in the fixed wing there, and they would fly aerial transects, because they got telemetry collars on them. And he would be he could be in the Harquahalas 1 week, and then they'd fly for him, and they couldn't find him, and then they would go over there into the Harkavars, and they would beep him up over there, and it was 30 miles. Those are corridors. Those are in between those mountain ranges, what we call a corridor. So and he would just pick up and go over there, and then he would be down in the Black Range. Time he was 10 or 11 years old, he had a big old home range and a bunch of girls that he was taking care of. And so that's how that happens. But if in a high population density, he wouldn't have gotten away with that, because there's other males in there and they've got their little home range. And let me tell you, if they cross that line, they'll fight to the death over it. Really? I've seen a lot. I've seen it quite a bit. Where you trail in there. Where they fight. And I mean, the area is just looks like a tornado went through there, where they're on the ground fighting one another, and they'll either kill one another or one of them is dead, and then you hit the other one, and you trail him up there 1/8 of a mile, and he's in pretty bad shape. Yeah, they're jealous over that home range.
They protect it, don't they?
Yeah, but it hinges. Those home range sizes depends on population density, I think.
Yeah,
I remember, Rick, that Tom lion that what was his name? Jackson. A buddy of yours that did your mechanic work. Anyway, that Tom lion. The Tom lion that he killed over there in Upper Holmes Creek, over there in the Bloody Basin country, and that lion was all scratched up and had old cuts and fresh cuts. And you got on the phone with George, and George says, "Get back in there, because he's fighting with other lions in there, and there's got to be more lions there."
Yeah, there was another big Tom there, and I think we ended up catching him and maybe a couple females over there. That was over there on the upper end of that New River Mesa and all that country over in there.
Yeah.
Tim.
That was right
Tim
there.
Jackson.
Tim Jackson, and that was right
Tim
there
Jackson.
That was kind of on the boundary line between the Lockett Place and the 51.
Oh yeah, over on that 51.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I think that was just me, you, and him over there, wasn't it? Or was there anybody else?
In fact, no, it was just me and you and Tim. There was a trapper that found a lion kill over there, a deer covered up, and told you.
Oh yeah, that was he was real famous. I was good. Mel Hirschberger was a famous fur trapper there in Arizona, and Mel called me and said, "Hey, I found a covered deer over here," and I said, "Okay, we're coming." And we went over there that next day and run him around there. We caught him pretty quick there because we were there pretty early. As soon as it got light enough to see that ground, we were gone. So,
well,
that was a big lion from what I remember.
Yeah, it was a good sized lion.
Yeah, I think he was too.
That,
But we ended up hunting
uh,
back over there.
What was the farthest
Do
you
what?
traveled to get a lion? What's the farthest you
Me?
traveled to get a lion? Yeah. Someone called you and you traveled.
Day and a half.
here you
Does it
go.
make you feel?
Makes me feel worthless.
Let me see. That is that Goswick dog. That's Trailer.
Yeah.
That's the Goswick dog I got, and that's the Dandy. Put it back up there. That's that Dandy dog. Put it back up
The
there,
dandy
please.
dog's right there by
That's
me.
Dandy. That's Dandy in between.
In between me
God
and
dang,
Tim.
Danny. You've wintered well, dude. You're looking good.
Yeah. I'm part of Fat
That's
Lori's
Dandy
pack.
sitting between you and that's Dandy between you and Tim.
Yeah.
That's the Johnny Clump dog, Dandy.
And then you've got Trailer right there in front of you.
Yeah, Trailer's next to me. I tell you what, that was a hell of a hound. I had him till he was. I kept him till he died. And I don't remember what happened to Dandy. I think somebody talked me out of her. I don't. It's been so long ago, but they always talk about the old Bolt dog. I had that Bolt dog until he died. I had him the last 2 years of his life.
Oh,
there was a guy down here.
Perry Helmsley.
Yeah, he bought that dog from Steve, and then brought him out here and hunted him a little bit. And then those ranchers, that was over there on the Pecos River. Anyway, they called me. One of them guys called me one day, and he said, "Hey, we got this old hound over here, and do you want him?" And I said, "Not really." I said, "Y'all made that bed lie in it." And he said, "Well, we don't know what to do with him. We took this dog away, and it's our dog now." And I got thinking about it. I said, because I knew Bolt growing up. I knew him when he was a puppy. I watched him start. I watched Larry start him, and I said, "You know what? I'll come get him." So I drove over there about three hours, and he was in a yard on about a 4-foot chain in a little old crappy doghouse. And I pulled up there and got out of the truck, and I said, "Bolt, you old son of a," And he got out of the thing. I think he recognized me. And he was pretty old at that time, and he goes, "Boo, boo," and I went over there and unsnapped him. And he run over there, was trying to get in the truck, and I had to pick him up and put him in the cage in the box, And anyway, I hunted him until he died. He just died under the horse trailer one day. But I had him and hunted him, and he went with us and was helping,
I'll be damned.
But I heard people talking about him. I had him the last 2 years of his life, and not very many people know that.
Bolt. I always heard about Bolt.
Yeah, there was another guy that hunted those dogs.
I'd always heard about Bolt a lot.
Yeah. He was a level 5 hound, level 6 hound. He was good.
Above average.
I knew him. I went over and got him because I knew him his whole life, and I'm glad I went and got him. He stayed there with us.
Did you get any pups out of him?
No, I never did try to breed to him, he just went when he wanted. I would go out there, and if he was standing at the kennel gate, and I'd open the gate and say, "You going to go, or what are you going to do?" He was just kind of like an old grumpy uncle around there. He just did what he wanted, And whether he knew his name, I don't know. I probably never even called to him by his name, but he was a Hendricks bred and trained dog. I can tell you that.
That's what's sad. That's what's sad to see, like with my booger dog. When you go out and for years he's always at the gate meeting you, man, just wiggling and just happy. Yeah. And now you can hunt him for a day or two, and then you go out there and he's still in his dog box, and he just kind of sticks his head out of his box, like, yeah, I want to go, but I'm a little bit sore right now. It's sad and it's hard to leave without one of those good ones. I mean, it's hard. When
I had him, I bet he was the last 2 years I had him, I'll bet he was in on 6 or 7 lions every year. I mean, I didn't take him every day because he was old, but he did like to go, and he'd rest up a little bit, and then he'd go 2 or 3 days. He was still tough.
Yeah.
But I bet he was, out of 45 lions, I bet he was, just thinking back on that, I'll bet he was, in on 6 or 7 lions a year. That's pretty dang good, man.
Yes.
When you're 105 years old, you take what you can get, I know he liked, we liked him. The dogs didn't mind him, and he fit right in. Let's put it that way.
Hell, I'm 63 and I take what I can get.
I had that journalist ask me, because I said, that's my old dog. He's 11. He says, well, what do you do with them when they're done? I said, they're never done. I said, those dogs will go as much as you let them go. And I said, 95% of your houndsmen, unless you give it to some kid who wants to teach his little pups how to just trail, said those dogs will stick around forever. That dog will die with me.
Exactly.
But his mom died with me. His dad died with me. Like, we don't just hit him in the head with the club and throw him out in the hills like you anti-activists believe we do.
When they get to that age with you, they don't owe you nothing. They don't owe you a thing. You owe them. You owe them good dog food and a good bed at night, and to be able to go out and hunt when they feel like it.
Yep.
Well, I would take them with me.
That's a perfect example. Remember your Popeye dog, Rick? When he got old, Terrell took him home and left him run loose, and he'd trail coons and whatever he wanted on the creek all night and lay up during the day. And Popeye just did what he wanted till he was done.
He was retired.
I would take him with me, and then but he got old and he'd get behind. See, and that's the problem. I mean, I raise and train those dogs, and then I would take them. They're 25 years old, and I'm still taking them. But you get up there and it gets rough, or you hit a line track, and those younger dogs, it's kind of sad, but they'll run off with it, and then you hear them 18 miles back there just trying to keep up.
Still going.
You go kill the lion. You go kill the lion, and then they're back. They're still right there trailing. They hadn't gone
Trail right into it.
And they're right there, and I'm like, "You good dog now? Let's go." And they'd fall in like, "That's right."
Yeah,
I was on it. Pumped up, I mean, I would baby them like that, and it's just. And so Terrell said, you want me to take him to the ranch? I said, "Yeah, if you would, take him down there and turn him out." And he would. He was an ill-mannered thing. Terrell would call, and he said, "Man, this dog's driving me crazy." I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Well, he stays up all night down there in the creek trailing, and he don't go nowhere, but he's just right there. He trails
making
about
noise.
12 yards. He's just down there, woo, and he's right there trailing." And Terrell said, and then when I feed him, he knocks the pan out of my hand, and he was just going on and on. Of course, I enjoy that. I'm like, it is what it is.
I rather
hounds get behind like that, and
it's like us. Wouldn't you rather die out there on your mule or fall off a cliff than a hospital? I'd rather them dogs die out there, just drop dead of a heart attack while they're hunting.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, there was a lot of days where those younger dogs would go down there and they'd jump those lines and catch them, and I'd shoot them out, and I'd hear those older dogs coming, and I would wait on them. I would sit there. If it took them 2 hours or 3 hours, I sat there and let them, and they would come, and they're so hilarious because they just trail in there like, "That's right."
Yeah.
Better late than never, partner.
If it wasn't for me, you guys would have never caught this lion.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way they act. They just come in there all dang puffed up like, "Yeah, y'all lucky I'm here." And I'm like, "Yeah, good dog," and they're over there. And then they go over there and they're yanking on the lion.
Wooling on that lion.
Oh, my God. You're like, easy before you pull a muscle. Uncle Teddy.
Pop a hip out.
Yeah, pop a hip or something. Then I got to pack you. I would wait on them. I mean, I've never told anybody that, but I would sit there. If I heard them coming, no matter what, I would sit there. And of course, dogs are all just laying around there crashed out. They're
done.
But I would wait till I would let them catch up.
I'll be dang. That's cool.
I hope somebody does that for me.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that the common public and the people that don't run dogs, elk hunters, deer hunters, whatever, that say we have it easy. That's the stuff they don't know about.
Yeah.
That's the stuff they don't know why we do it. Right there.
Yeah, they're full of it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're welcome to their opinion, but if you don't have the facts and you don't know what you're talking about, keep your pie hole shut.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
Whoopsie. Yeah.
I'm just against, as you can tell, I'm against people sticking their nose or making comments that they don't know what they're,
Bullies.
you know.
I hate bullies.
Yeah.
I don't like bullies.
Oh, and the
Yeah.
internet's full of them now.
Keyboard
Oh,
warriors, bullies,
Yeah.
trolls. Yeah.
People should mind their own business is what they should do, because they don't have any idea what we're like or what makes us tick. You know.
Well, I've said it before. We're not.
Around. They're not sitting. We're not sitting around pulling the wings off of flies, okay,
Nope.
and throwing them on the table, watching them buzz. I mean, we're not mean
exactly.
like that. You know, that's a crappy analogy, but we're not those kind of people.
Mm-mm.
We care about these hounds.
We also don't put up with shit.
No, heck no.
And also,
That's one of those, you know. Go ahead, Brett.
well, I think a lot of people don't understand is the respect we have for the lions themselves. I mean, they're such a fascinating creature to think that there's over 100-pound cat out there walking around that you never see. You don't without hounds. You don't go out there and just spot those things, and they're there. It's such
greatest game animal, greatest sport animal in North America.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Pound for pound, the strongest animal, you know, on four legs. They're just amazing. Yeah, I enjoy being around them. I'm still, you know, after all these years, I'm still in awe.
And that feeling,
I enjoy being around them.
Especially for someone like me, that feeling you get when you're out there and you've been, you know, just riding circles, trying to cut a good lion track. And then you hear that dog, and you walk up there and you see that big old track on the ground. You think, oh my gosh, that's just like the greatest. Then those dogs start working.
It ain't a coyote.
Yeah, it's not a coyote. This ain't a coyote this time. This is a lion. And you're just like, man. And then that young dog goes up there and you see her start whipping her tail, and all of a sudden she goes, woo! Yeah, that's just that feeling. That's just
wildlife
amazing.
is not like humans. Humans are the sorriest mammals on earth. Wildlife, lions and deer, and they don't have a hidden agenda. They're not phony. They're just doing what they do. They're just
do what they do.
It's just it's a straight up deal. And some people are just humans can tend to be kind of mean spirited or dishonest, or you know, they do a lot of evil things. In the wildlife community, there's not that. There's no intention of that.
They're surviving. They're surviving.
Yeah, there's no intentions to be, you know, to murder or be, you know, to rape or whatever. So you've got to respect that, you know. I've learned a lot from being around wildlife and watching it and being around it my whole life. I respect it, and it's taught me a lot. And I think it's helped me to be a better human.
Yep. Well, cool.
Yep.
What else do we got, Mr. Chris?
I think he's touched on everything I wanted to even know about. I feel my cat hunting IQ went up about 10 points.
Absolutely.
Now you're a level 1.75.
1.75. Yeah, I was trying to go a little high. I'll take that 7.5.
I'm 2.3 right now. I'm ahead of you, Chris.
I'm retired. I'm like a -9 now. All I can do is reminisce. And I got a little stinking dog that don't belong to anybody. And she had puppies, by the way. So now I got a whole pack. I got a whole pack of healer pups. There was a blue healer in the yard for about a week, and now and she's half healer. So I've got
3/4 healer.
She's half Chihuahua and half healer. So I've got, and they're healers.
So
they look like healers.
Well, you got a Mexican Australian cattle dog.
God, they're just, they're like 6 or 7 weeks now, and they get up at 4 o'clock every morning, and they're out there fighting and just barking. And so now I have 5 her puppies, and she stays at the barn. They moved her to the barn. She doesn't live up there at the house with me anymore. Now the puppies live there, and I go outside and they just maul me, you know, I'm just going to keep them because I don't know what to do with them. you know.
Yep.
So now if you hear me talk in the future, you know, ask about Tootsie and then ask about whatever they are.
Well,
Mexican
they
cattle
won't
dog.
know their names anyway, Rick. They won't
Yeah.
ever learn their names anyway.
You know what? In defense of myself and in defense of the dog that doesn't belong to anybody, she knows her name. That's what kind of dog handler I am. If I holler, she can be out there and she's real protective of the place. I hear her out there just raising Ned, and I'll yell to her and whistle, Tootsie, Bente Baga, Bente. And here she comes flying, you know, and she knows her name. Yeah, she's a good girl. But I got to have her spayed, I guess. I take her. She's never had any shots, never been to town, never been out of the yard. I've never been in the pickup. So
it's one thing I've never had any trouble doing is taking a female down, getting them spayed. Boy, they come into season, the kennel just gets terrible. So I'll load them up and spay them.
I just had, and they all, once they sync up, I just took 2 out of my horse trailer. I have 1 in the heat pen, and I had 2 the week before, and Stinker was in. They just all at the same time. But I sure like how a female hunts.
I do too.
What about you, Richard? Female or male?
What's the question?
Female or male? Which one do you think hunts harder, or which one did you hunt more?
Male dogs or females, preference? No matter.
I never had any preference. I've had level 5 females, and you know, I've had the top of the both. I mean, I've seen it in both. I've had great males and great females.
Looking back now over your career and all the lions and all the dogs, is there one dog that that was just a phenomenal freak, was better than the rest that you thought more of, or anything like that?
Yeah, I had a dog that. Well, I got him as a puppy and his sister from Larry, and I don't remember, they were little when I got them. They were little pups. Anyway, I raised them and trained them, and they were out of and 2 dogs that I saw grow up and hunt. I mean, I knew those dogs when they were puppies and watched Larry start them, and it was Snort and Annie. They were Snort and Annie puppies, and so they were litter mates, and it was Cisco and Flojo. And they were both level 7 dogs. I mean, they were probably better than 5s.
Cold nosed and fast on a track.
Yeah, and the female, she was more vocal. They could both move a track like nobody's business. Hell, a 2-day-old track, you couldn't hardly stay with either one of them. But Flojo, she was more loose with her mouth and just loose trailing. She was just, man, she was just the queen of, if she made a little loose, she'd just whirl and just pick it. You know, she didn't make a lose very long. She was just really, really talented. And and Cisco, he was very quiet. He never would say anything. You'd see him banging his little tail, you know, and he would just, I mean, he could trail really quick too, just as quick as her. But he was quiet, and when you heard him barking, you know, if you heard him barking, he had the lion up. He had the lion jump when he would get to barking. And he sounded sorry like all of them. He'd be like, you know, he had this little squeaking voice. He was like, woo, woo. You'd hear him going, and you'd think, well, better sharpen your knife, you know. But they were both exceptional hounds. The only difference between Cisco and her, or all of the males were tougher if a lion was on the ground. The girls were, I'm not saying they wouldn't fight. I mean, they had grit, but them males, they're males, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're stronger and they're more
aggressive,
you know.
huh?
Well, they got a set of werewolves and they want to brawl, you know. And but he got killed. He got a lion killed him right in front of me, and my fault. I mean, I was just you know, I was 60 seconds, 30 seconds too late getting to him, and when I got up there, he got on top of him right there in front of me and killed him. And tried to kill a couple of other dogs, you know, in front of me, which he didn't get it done. But he was an exceptional hound. And she was too, but if I had to pick one, which I thought was better, and he would bite. I mean, he didn't know his name. He wouldn't listen. And when I was breaking him, he bit me several times trying to break him because I broke him by hand. I didn't shock him. I broke him manually. And
manually.
I tell you what,
I like that.
You like that? Yeah.
Manually.
No Bluetooth on that.
I manually broke that dog.
That's the Christian version. How'd you break that dog? I broke him manually. But I'd get him by the collar and I'd be schooling on him, and he would, I'll tell you what, he was stout now. And he would bite. And I would tell people, don't try to touch him. He'll bite you. And I got to tell a quick story. My youngest daughter, Bug, she was way better than me with the hounds. And really, I don't know, she was like clairvoyant. She was 8 years old, and we'd be running along there, and I'd tell her, I said, what do you think, Bug? We're going to catch this? She said, no, I don't think we're going to catch it, Daddy. And I said, okay. But she always knew. She'd say, yeah, we're going to catch it. Well, you'd catch a lion. And those hounds, because they would pet them, and they knew those kids growing up. I mean, since they were, El Cisco, he died. He got killed when he was 10 or 11, so he knew Bug her whole life, because they would be out there fiddling around with him. And this dog was mean. So we caught a lion one time, and I still laugh about it today. So her and I went off in this real rough canyon, and it got a little warm. We caught the lion, and anyway, there was 8, 9, 10 hounds off in this canyon. And our mules were tied way over on the other side of the mountain because it was pretty rough going and real ledgy. And I told her, I said, hey, we ain't going to be able to get these donkeys off there in time. I said, let's just tie up and we'll go foot. She said, all right. And she's 8 years old and been in on, she started going with me. She's like 4 or 5. She'd been in a lot of line. She used to ride behind me on the back of the camel, on the back on the jockey there. And she would just hang on. And she rode till she was big enough. She informed me one day she was about 7 or 8. She said, I'm big enough to have my own mule now, Dad. And I was like, all right. So, but she rode behind me for years and years when she was little. So anyway, I told her, I said, you stay here in the bottom of this canyon because it's a long climb back up out of it. It was getting hot. And I said, you keep these dogs here because I don't want them to travel. And I'll go get the mules and I'll go around and get the truck and the trailer. And there was an old mining road, and I could kind of get off down there in the bottom a little, pretty close. And I said, and I'll go around. I'm going to be a while. I'm going to be 2 or 3 hours. But I'll go around and then I'll come back up this canyon. I'll bring the mules up the canyon and I'll get you guys. And I said, you stay right here. And she had learned when I told her, I said, you stay right here, because I'd left her a lot. I said, and I probably shouldn't say that, but that's just the way those kids were raised. When I told her, I said, you stay right here. If you move, I'll whip you, Yeah. That's just the way we did it. And she listened. So I told her, I said, you stay here and stay brushed up here and keep these dogs. I said, Popeye's going to come with me because he's not going to get left. He goes where I go. This is the way he was. So I rimmed out and I got over there and I was gone. And I got the mules and I went. That was a long time. I was ponying her mule back over there and I jumped him in and I drove around over there. And anyway, I got out, got on my mule and got her mule and was going up this canyon. And I got up there where I thought they were and I kind of reined up. And I called to her. I said, Bug. I said, where you at? And she don't answer me.
Oh, no.
So I called her again, even more sternly. I said, Bug, where you at? Answer me. She comes out from under this bunch of white brush there and thorny bushes there. She had made her a little nest under there trying to get some shade in the bottom of that canyon. And she comes out and she says, I'm here, Daddy. I'm right here. And she had taken the laces out of her boots and made a leash and had it on Cisco. Nobody in the world would have been able to put a lace leash on that dog and hang on to him. And she had him on a leash and she had him all snubbed up. And Cisco's just looking at me like, wow, is she ever mean? And I told her, and she had a 38. I left a 38 pistol with her. And she had the pistol in the front of her trousers, and she had this biting dog on the end of this leash.
No.
I said, girl, what are you doing? She said, well, I got thinking about it. She said, and if somebody came up here and the 38 didn't take care of her. She said, I was going to sick this dog on him. And she said, and I wanted to keep him with me. I said, that's my girl.
That's pretty good.
Good story. Yeah.
That's
Anyway.
I remember those two girls when you guys lived with us, Rick, and that bug, she was a live wire back then, and she was little bitty.
She's hell on heels now. When they were in 6th grade, she punched a boy in line. I got called to the school. Well, it was here, and she was like, I don't know, maybe in the 5th or 6th grade. And her sister, her older sister, a boy was jacking with him in line, and so I get the story when I get down there. And she told me later. She said, "Well, I warned him to knock it off, and he didn't listen." She said, and those groups grew up with boxing and martial art. I mean, I was teaching them to take care of themselves, and they can both do that to this day. But anyway, she cracks this boy and drops him in line. So they call me. They said, "Hey, you got to come up here." So I find out what's going on. I said, "Why am I here? You know, why am I up here? You know?" So I get the principal's like, "Well, we just can't have this." I said, "Well, tell little Bobby or little Johnny to keep his damn hands to himself." Once again, why am I here? You know, and she's a little bitty thing. She was like in the 5th grade. She just turns around in line, bam, bam, and bangs this guy. And then the oldest girl, Fawn, she was like, "Yeah, she dropped him, Daddy. She just hit him one time." And poor little Bobby, you know.
That's cool.
You know, who would even call in on a deal like that? Wouldn't that be embarrassing?
I would think so.
Yeah.
You know, 40 pounds soaking wet little girl, and she decks you. Funny how you remember that stuff as you get older.
I would have just went to the back of the line, maybe. Whoopsie.
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 I always tell a lot of young guys here, they all got kids. I said, y'all enjoy that, and you all know that you wake up one day and everybody's gone. And Chris, you're a young man.
Fact.
Enjoy your kids, man, because you'll wake up and your pickup will be gone, your rope and rig will be gone, everything will be gone.
Oh, it is. It is. I've lost a lot of vehicles to my kids, and
that's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
But you wake up one day and you're just sitting there saying,
"No, that's a fact." Tell people post these baby pictures. I said, when you blink, they're in kindergarten. When you blink again, they're in junior high, and you blink again, they're graduated.
It ain't fair, is it?
Well, there's a good story to end on. Right?
What's that,
sir?
I said there's a good story to end on. Our 3 hours.
Yeah, we made it our 3 hours, and
it's quick when you got a good story.
It seems like we just got started.
I feel like I've been really long-winded, and
no, that's what we're all about. We want to hear people's stories. That's why we do this.
Well, invite me back. I'll come back on sometime.
Yeah, please do. This was my favorite one so far. So
that's exactly why. This is why we classify Mr. Dickerson as special.
Special. And it's not because of the bus he rode.
Bus driver.
Not to be confused with the bus driver.
Window licker.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, I've traveled a couple 100 miles with you in my life. And if you want to drive a bus and come pick me up, I'll roll with you again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's friendship right there.
I'm gonna.
All right, guys.
Richard's gonna come down and help me one of these days. He's gonna come down here, and I'll film it too, so I can show you all my faults.
You're never retired when you're a dog guy.
Brett told me, he said, "Come down and take my dogs, and I'll just film it, and you just hunt." And I said, "Okay." So
we got a deal.
Don't have to feed them. You don't have to rake the crap. That's a good deal.
I told him, I said, "Don't be mad when I take Fat Lori and catch a lion and she's up there chewing one." When you come up there with the camera, you're like, "Dang, that was quick." And I've gunned that thing legally because we'll have a tag.
We'll have a tag. Guys, thank you. All our regulars that show up all the time, guys, thank you so much for stopping in. We really appreciate it. And don't forget about
members of my AZWDA.
And don't forget, Chris does the same thing on Wednesday nights over on Antidote of a Houndsman.
I don't know. This is a 5 show. I'm about a 1 show now. I'm afraid.
It gives you something to shoot for, Chris.
I'm gonna have to get Bug. I'm gonna have to get Bug on my show just to
So you
beat
could probably
this.
tell some good stories, huh? Some truthful stories for a change.
Hey, you better start with her older sister Fawn. If you go straight to Bug, you'll be overwhelmed.
So yeah,
next time.
Yeah. Bring your guitar next time. Play us a song.
Yeah, if I come back, I'll bring my acoustic. Maybe I'll sing you something.
I still got to send you that song that my wife wrote.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it.
I'll send it to you here.
I could have played this last weekend, but I didn't go. They had a gig up there, but I didn't go. I hadn't been going much. It just, I go some, but it is what it is,
Guys, thank you,
Appreciate
Benny.
it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Richard.
Richard, thank you so much for stopping in.
Yeah.
I know.
Good.
Appreciate you guys.
I know it was a lot of effort. He had to recruit one of his secretaries to set him all up here. So my wife is sending her a gift certificate. So
bless her heart. She just every single day she just shakes her head. She's like, "Wow,
how did I get in this? How come I have to take care of this man?"
She carries me. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. She carries me, buddy. Every single day she's carrying me. It is what it is. So.
Perfect, guys. Well, guys, thank you. That was a good one. Richard, thank you very much. Chris, as always, Mr. Benny, and all you guys.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Hey.
Yes, sir.
Onward and upward.
That's it. That's it. There's no other way.
That? You like that?
Yes, sir.
You like that?
Yes, sir. No other way.
Hey.
See you later.
See ya.
We'll see y'all later. Thank you.